Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will call the Committee of Adjustment meeting for July 16th to order. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabeg, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further, we give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. So, good evening, committee members. Looking for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda. Moved by committee member Ladresse and committee member Glenn. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Do we have any addition to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'll ask for a declaration of pecuniary interest for the meeting. Seeing none, I'll move on. I'll remind the committee members that if you perceive a pecuniary interest at any time in the meeting, you can declare at that time. I'm going to look for a mover for the minutes of the meeting on May 21st. Moved by committee member Coburn, seconded by committee member Glenn. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Moving to new business, 6.1, DEB 2024-041, which is a severance application for Lundy B13-24. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for severance for John and Joanne Lundy under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at Concession 17, Part Lot 16. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this severance, in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96, made under the Planning Act, was given on June 18th, 2024 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and on the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of the decision of the committee in respect to this proposed severance may submit an appeal.
Thank you. I'll now read the recommendation as presented and ask for a mover and a seconder. It has been demonstrated that the application B13-24 for John and Joanne Lundy for lands described as Concession 17, Part Lot 16 is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Grey's official plan, and complies with the intent of the Township of Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw 2020-20. Pardon me. It is recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the Land Registry Office. 2, that pursuant to the Section 53, paragraph 42 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of the notice of decision or as specified in the Planning Act at the time of the deed stamping. Note, Section 53, paragraph 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. the stamping of the deed. 3, that the applicant pays the applicable consent certification fee at the time of certification of the deeds. 4, that a karst study be completed for the severed lands to the satisfaction of Grey County. 5, that an environmental impact study be completed for the severed lands to the satisfaction of Grey County. And 6, that a minor variance to the township zoning bylaw recognizing the reduced lot frontage for the severed lands be implemented. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by committee member Moore-Coburn, seconded by committee member Ladresse. All those in favor? Oh, pardon me. Could the planner give us a summary of the planning report regarding this file?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I move on with the report, I just wanted to note a slight administrative error. I had the wrong application number and people noted in the first paragraph, the recommendations, but the recommendations as listed in my report are still valid to this application. The application B1324 proposes to separate 5,000 square meter vacant parcel of land from an existing 1.53 rural residential parcel. When you look at our the county's GIS, Geographic Information System mapping, 3 parcels appear to exist on this site, and those parcels were created in the early 1990s. However, each parcel has its own assessment roll number. However, all 3 parcels were merged and are now registered under one parcel identification number. The owners would like to convey the easternmost parcel, which originally showed up in early 1990s severance, to a family member, but cannot do so until that parcel is legally reestablished. The severed parcel would have a lot area of 5,000 square meters with a lot frontage of 54.86 meters and a depth of 100.58 meters. The retained parcel would then have a total lot area of 1.03 hectares and a lot frontage of 1.09 meters and a lot depth of 100.58 meters. There's an existing dwelling and accessory structures on the retained parcel. Moving on down to comments. At the time of the writing of this report, comments were received from the Gray Sauble Risk Management Office dated June 20th, noting no concerns, and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation provided comments dated June 27th, noting no concerns. Also not included in the report are comments received from Grey County, and I'm just opening those now. Second. Comments received from the Grey County's Planning and Development Services Department note that the property is located within an area that is subject to karst formations, and as such, they're looking for a karst study. And they also note that the lands are located within the significant woodlands, significant wildlife habitat, and the potential for threatened and endangered species. As such, the Grey County's planning ecologist is requesting that a scoped environmental impact study be completed. The county also commented that the application area is within within the original township lot of 43 hectares, and that original township lot contains 3 lots already, but an additional lot that could be created based on the county's studies. So, with basically the county is essentially saying that this new lot could be recreated, but they would like to see a karst study and a environmental impact study completed to support that application. And back to that was before, sorry about that. With that, that's all the comments received thus far.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I now call upon the applicant to provide comments. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Yeah, if you want to just come right up.
My name's Joanne Lundy, and I would like to ask that the recommendations in the car study be waived. The reason for severing off that lot is we're going to gift it to our daughter, and there's no way they can afford that. And we already got a laneway permit, and they put the laneway and everything in already. We're just waiting to get the lot severed. It was originally by itself, but when we bought the 3 lots, we amalgamated them all, not thinking that we could help anybody out. So that's my comments.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lundy. So there are no members of the public registered to provide a comment. I'll now call upon any members of the public who may wish to comment on the application. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Seeing nothing. Are there any points raised by the planner, applicant, or public that the committee wishes to respond to? Committee member Coburn, more Coburn.
Actually, my question is for Mr. Benner. Was that included in your list of people that I could, or are we keeping it?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, was any questions raised by the planner, applicant, or public? Yep.
Thank you.
Maybe I misread that though.
No, you didn't. So I guess my question is, what you've included in the report, Mr. Benner, what the county is recommending or what they're asking for, but we don't have the document that was, we would normally see that as a separate attachment. So I'm just wondering, I guess why that's not there for us to see, but it seems like it's been incorporated into the report anyway.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did receive the, so it's kind of a straight thing, I suppose. We did receive county comments after I initially prepared the report and put it into our eScribe approval system along with the county comments. So I was able to amend the report and thought I had comments included, but they didn't make it onto the agenda.
I guess I was just wondering if there might be more information in the actual report that would help us address what the applicant is asking us to consider in terms of the karst study.
Through Mr. Chair, if you will indulge me, I can read that section of the county's report that speaks to the karst, if that'll help.
If it's different, I mean, I imagine it's not different than what you've included in the report. If it's all there, then that's, I don't want to make you read more information.
It's not very big.
It's short. Okay.
It's short.
Thank you.
So they basically say that Appendix A of the county official plan indicates that the subject lands contain karst. The proposed severance is located entirely within an area containing karst. County planning staff recommend that a karst assessment be completed to ensure that there is a viable building envelope outside of the karst.
So without the karst study, the folks who may plan to do some work on that property could be denied? Or is this the property that already has the buildings on it?
Mr. Chair, this is be the severed portion, so there's no buildings on the severed portion yet. And the karst study would be able to determine if that lot is indeed buildable or not. If there's karst everywhere, then chances are they could not get a good building lot on it. So that's the reason why the county's looking for a karst assessment. See if there's a location that has a bit of a building envelope.
Any other further comment from committee members? So I guess I do have a question. So here's my worry is the county is expressing environmental concern and karst concern. Even if we were to go ahead and say we'll waive those conditions, that doesn't necessarily mean anything because the county could still appeal that decision and we'd be left defending that then at tribunal, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So I think the question before procedurally, do I continue or do we kind of proceed with a question? So I guess I'm looking to committee members saying, is there an appetite? We have a motion on the floor with the conditions. Do we have an appetite to amend those? So we would need someone to move and second an amendment of the motion on the floor. So seeing none, Mr. Planner, I sometimes get more conversational in this. At this point, do we turn to the landowner with a question about is it smarter to defer this and go to the county and talk to them about their conditions rather than see this motion through that we have on the floor?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think the county is actually pretty firm on this is a very standard requirement from the county. It's their official plan that's identified karst areas, and this is how they approach that. I don't see the county waiving on this requirement. So you may want to then suppose turn to the applicant, see how they would like to proceed.
So yes. So the reason I ask that question is, and it's for the benefit of the landowner to say, if we proceed the way we are now and we approve based on the conditions that we have there, the landowner has to either see those conditions or they don't have a successful severance. If we defer this, then at least the landowner would have the opportunity to go to the county and say, and have some discourse about that, wouldn't we? So I think at this point, do we turn to the landowner and say it's sort of over to you, whether you want to withdraw at this point or have us proceed with the motion?
Through Mr. Chair, I would speak for the committee, but I would suggest there's a couple different avenues. One, we could defer, and that you could defer, sorry, and then that gives the applicant an opportunity to discuss the conditions with the county. Two, the applicant could just decide to withdraw the application at this point, knowing what the conditions are. Or three, the applicant, or sorry, the committee could move forward with the recommendations on whichever way the committee decides to move with those. And then the applicant would then be left with conditions they would have to satisfy. And if they decide not to satisfy those conditions, then the application just basically dies on the table, essentially.
Mrs. Lundy, does that all make sense to you? Do you have an idea what you think you'd prefer to do at this point? I do have one more question about it after you go ahead. If you have an idea right now what you want to do.
It does make sense. I like how you can explain it in my language. I think maybe we will defer. It's more the cost of everything. And until I find out how much everything costs.
Yeah. Understood. So keeping in mind that you could fill a thimble with what I know about planning, I do have a question. Is there an opportunity for a secondary unit on this property that would satisfy the needs of the family without doing a severance?
There would, but we're getting up in age. And unless everything is done in our will and who gets what, then there would just be fighting at
Okay.
the end.
Fair enough. I just wanted to put that on the
Yeah.
table as a maybe a consideration, but I think what I'm hearing right now is I would be interested in accepting a motion to defer. Moved by Committee Member Moore Coburn, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. All those in favor? That motion is carried. So we'll defer the application at this time. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. There's no further discussion on this matter. The public hearing is now adjourned. So we'll move to item 6.1.2, a severance application, DEV 2024-042, a severance application for Taylor numbered B14-24, B15-24, and B16-24. The recommendation on the floor is that application B14-24, B15-24, and B16-24 be withdrawn. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Moore Coburn, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. And I will turn this over to the planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the comments received on the application, the applicants have decided to withdraw this application. That allows them a chance to reconsider what they want to do and perhaps come forward with a new application that looks different. The application before us today.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion is carried. Uh, 2-1. Was it 2-1? Ron voted opposed. Does committee member agree that my count was right on that? The votes for Committee Member Ladresse and Committee Member Coburn, and opposed Committee Member Glenn. Okay. Right. The motion's defeated. Moving to the next item is 6.1.3. Lot addition DEV 2024-043. A lot addition for Hamley B1724. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for severance for Larry Hamley under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at Concession 15, Part Lot 5, Keppel. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of the severance in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on June 18th, 2024 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and on the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of the decision of the committee in respect to this proposed severance may submit an appeal.
I will now read the recommendation as presented and ask for a mover and a seconder. Can make it through this, excuse me. It has been demonstrated that application B1724 for Larry Hamley for the lands legally described as Concession 15, Part Lot 5, Keppel, Georgian Bluffs, is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms to the County of Gray's official plan, and conforms to the Township of Georgian Bluffs zoning bylaw. It is recommended that the applications be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the Land Registry Office. 2, that pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of the notice of decision. Note, Section 53, paragraph 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. the stamping of the deed. 3, that the owner pays the applicable consent certification fee at the time of the certification of the deeds. And 4, that the payment of the balance of any outstanding taxes as of the date of the certification of the transfer and deed with respect to the property that is subject to the application shall be made to the treasurer of the Township of Georgian Bluffs. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Glenn, seconded by Committee Member Moore-Colburn. Could the planner give us a summary of the planning report regarding this file?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Application B 1724 proposes to sever a 1 hectare vacant parcel from an existing 49.5 hectare parcel to be merged with the budding lands to the north. The severed lands would have a lot area of 1 hectare with a lot frontage of 65 meters and depth of 100 meters. And the retained lands would have an area of 48.5 meters and a lot frontage of 255 meters. In terms of comments received, notice of the complete application was circulated on June 16th, 2024 to various agencies, and Grace Sabo Risk Management Office commented on June 20th, noting no concerns. Grey County Planning and Development Services provided comments on July 9th, noting that planning justification addressing the above criteria was provided. Provided Georgian Bluffs planning staff are satisfied that the proposed lot addition and the provided justification meets these criteria, which talk about lot additions. County planning staff no concerns, and I can confirm that Georgian Bluffs planning staff are satisfied that planning justification was provided. And county planning staff also recommend that the subject application be revised to have a maximum lot area of just kind of confusing because they say the lot area is 0.8 hectares, and we recommend that the lot area be 0.4 hectares. In addition, county planning staff recommend consulting with qualified engineer to ensure that the proposed dwelling will not be located on top of the abandoned petroleum wells. The county comments regarding the result lot size of 0.4 hectares is actually smaller than the minimum requirements in a zoning bylaw for a rural residential lot. So at the township level, we would prefer that the minimum lot area remain as 1 hectare to comply with your zoning bylaw. So we don't need to go through a zoning bylaw amendments. And essentially those are all the comments received today.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I'll now call upon the applicant to provide comments. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bev Nicholson, for those of you I don't know, and the applicants, Ms. Handley and Gary Ganter, are unable to make it because of work commitments. They live down in Mount Forest right now. The subject lands are just east of Clavering. The existing farm parcel is owned by Mr. Larry Handley and is located abutting concession 16 and the Lift Side Road on the corner there. The parcel is currently farmed and will continue to be farmed after this transaction hopefully occurs. The existing smaller parcel is significantly undersized. Say about that one. There is an existing drainage area that crosses from the east through this property to the west. And so one of the reasons for the size is that rather leaving a chunk out with the farm, we just squared off the lot. It's not, Mr. Handley says that area is not good for farming anyways, so it doesn't affect his current operation. And the land, which is now part of this lot, would also not be convenient for him to continue to farm. So he's felt confident that this area was suitable for the proposed use. The proposed land addition would be onto the smaller parcel. It would comply, both parcels would comply with the municipal zoning bylaw. It includes the drainage area. As I said, rather than leaving a little chunk out of that, it just squared off the lot. The existing lot has some heritage apple trees, which the Hambley Ghent purchasers would like to continue to maintain. The widening on the frontage of this lot would then give a better setback from the side, the Lisk side road for their accessing. And the owner indicates that, as I said, the drainage and that slope area are not really suitable for agriculture, and this loss of this land will not negatively affect his current operation. Therefore, with the proposal, as it meets the township's bylaws, it can sustain new residential development that would be a dwelling, accessory building, and septic system. We're proposing, hopefully, that we're in agreement with the lot addition. And if you have any additional questions, I'm available tonight.
Thank you. No members of the public registered to provide comment. I now call upon any members of the public who may wish to make comment on this application. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Seeing nothing. Excuse me. Are there any points raised by the planner, applicant, or public that the committee wishes to respond to? Seeing nothing. If there is no further discussion, I will now call a vote on the motion as presented. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Got me questioning myself now. Is my counting? If there's no further discussion, this public meeting is now adjourned. I think I misspoke at the end of the last one anyway, because I said it was defeated. It wasn't defeated. It was carried. So after all that, we'll move to the next item. Are you volunteering to be chair? Okay. Good. You can do the counting then. How about that? Item 6.1.4. This is DEV 2024-44, which is a severance application for Walcott B18-24. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for severance for De Beer and Winifred Walcott under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at Range Georgian E, Part Lot 13. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of the severance in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on June 18th, 2024 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on subject lands and on the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of the decision of the committee in respect to this proposed severance may submit an appeal.
Thank you. I will now read the recommendation as presented and ask for a mover and a seconder. It has been demonstrated that the proposed application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and complies with the general intent and purpose of the Township of Georgian Bluffs zoning bylaw 2020-20. However, it is noted that the application does not comply with the natural heritage system policies of the Grey County Official Plan. Accordingly, it is recommended that the application be denied. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Glenn, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. Could the planner give us a summary of the planning report regarding this file?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Application B1824 proposes to sever an area of approximately 0.81 hectares with frontage of approximately 100 meters along Grey Road 1. The retained parcel would have an area of approximately 17.89 hectares with frontage of approximately 157 meters along Grey Road 1 and is occupied by an existing single detached dwelling and 2 accessory buildings, including one detached garage and a chicken coop. In terms of relevant consultation and comments received. Grey County Planning and Development Services provided comments on July 9th. And they note that, staff note that the proposed lot is located within the core area of the county's natural heritage system and is not farm sized. County planning staff recommended that the subject application be refused as new non-farm sized lot creation is not permitted within the core area. Staff also note that the potential impact to natural heritage needs to be assessed through a scoped environmental impact study, and they recommend that consultant contact the county to determine the terms of reference for the study. County transportation staff are also recommending that a 4-meter road widening from the southwest corner of the retained lot to 110 meters north of this new corner shall be conveyed to the county of Grey at the expense of the applicant. Road width north of the 110 meter mark is already 15 meters, therefore no widening is required for this portion of the subject property. So essentially, we're getting comments, because they seem a little bit confusing, comments from 3 divisions of Grey County. The first one is from the planning staff, noting that under the planning policies in the official plan, no new lots are allowed within the core area of the natural heritage study. Second comment regarding the environmental impact study is from the county's planning ecologist, that if the lot was approved, they would need to do an environmental impact study. And a third comment from county transportation staff regarding the road widening. The Saugeen Ojibwe Nation also provided comments on June 27th, noting that an archaeological assessment would be required for the property. And Grey Sabal Source Water Protection's Risk Management Office provided comments on June 20th, noting no concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I now call upon the applicant to provide comments. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning.
My mic is off. I'm sorry.
Oh,
This
that's
is
okay. We
Yanni.
got you now.
Okay. This is Yanni Brewer here for Questa Planning Consultants. I am the representative of, sorry, this is for Kirk, right?
No, not yet. You're just a bit early. But we see you.
Okay.
We'll see you, and
Okay,
we'll come back
great.
to you. Yeah,
My apologies. I'm gone.
that's okay. So do we have an agent for the Walcott? No. Okay. So no members of the public have registered to provide comment. I now call upon any members of the public who may wish to make comment on this application. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Seeing nothing. Are there any points raised by the planner, applicant, or public that the committee wishes to respond to? Seeing none. If there's no further discussion, I will now call the vote on the motion as presented. Are we aware the motion is, do we want me to read the motion again, or is everybody familiar with the recommendation? Yes, read it again, or yes, you're familiar? Okay, everyone's familiar. So all those in favor? That motion is carried. If there is no further discussion, this public hearing is now adjourned. So we'll now move to item 6.1.5, DEV 2024-045, the severance application for Kirk, B19-24. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for severance for Kevin Kirk under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at Concession 18, Lot 21. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of this application. Notice of the severance in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on June 18th, 2024 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and on the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of the decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed severance may submit an appeal.
Thank you, Madam Secretary Treasurer. I will now read the recommendation as presented and ask for a mover and a seconder. It has been demonstrated that application B19-24 for Kevin Kirk for lands described as Lot 21, Concession 18, Keppel Township is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Grey's official plan, and complies with the intent of the Township of Georgian Bluffs zoning bylaw 2020-20. It is recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the Land Registry Office. 2, that pursuant to Section 53, Paragraph 42 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of the notice of decision. Note, Section 53, Paragraph 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. the stamping of the deed. 3, that the applicant pays for the applicable consent certification fee at the time of the certification of the deeds. 4, that the applicant contact the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation regarding any archaeological assessment requirements. 5, that a supporting zoning bylaw amendment be in force and effect to rezone the lands to a site-specific zone under the AG zone to prohibit the future construction of a new residential dwelling of any type on the retained lands and recognize a reduced lot frontage of 96.9 meters for the severed lands and a reduced lot area of 36 hectares for the retained lands. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Glenn, seconded by Committee Member Laura Colburn. Could the planner give us a summary of the planning report regarding this file?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Application B19-24 proposes to sever an area of approximately 1.5 hectares with frontage of approximately 96.9 meters along Mountain Lake Drive to create a residential non-farm lot. The retained parcel would have an area of approximately 36 hectares with frontage of approximately 311 meters along Mountain Lake Drive that will continue to be used for farming purposes. The severed lands actually contain the residential dwelling, a shed, and a small accessory storage structure. Application Z03, which is also applied for concurrently, just so the committee knows, proposes to rezone a portion of the subject lands from agricultural AG zone to the rural residential zone to permit the continued use of the residential purposes and to recognize the reduced lot area and lot frontage for both the retained and severed lands. A site-specific amendment is also required to recognize the reduced, to recognize that residential uses on a farm lot associated with the farm lot dwelling severances would be restricted. And in terms of comments received, comments were received from Grey County Planning and Development Services on July 9th, and they note that provided Georgian Bluffs are satisfied that the applicable criteria for surplus farm severance listed above has been met, and that the barn is either added to the surplus farmhouse severance or decommissioned. County planning staff have no concerns with the subject application. Saugeen Ojibwe Nation provided comments on June 27th. Noted that SON requires an archaeological assessment and the proponent should reach out to their office to discuss next steps. And Grace Salvo Source Water Protection Risk Management Office provided comments on June 20th, noting no concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I will now call upon the applicant to provide comments. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Mrs. Brower, the moment you've been waiting for.
My apologies for earlier. Yanni Brewer at the Office of Questa Planning Consultants here. I don't think that the client is at the meeting in person. Doesn't seem like they're attending virtually either. I'll just be brief. Our office concurs with the recommendations from staff, and I'll be here for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. No members of the public have registered to provide comment. I now call upon any members of the public who may wish to make comment on this application. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Seeing nothing, I now turn to the committee. Are there any points raised by the planner, applicant, or public that committee wishes to respond to? Seeing nothing. If there is no further discussion, I will now call the vote on the motion as presented. All those in favor? That motion is carried. If there is no further discussion, this public hearing is now adjourned. Now we'll move to item 6.1.6, DEV 2024-46, a severance application for Galloway, B08-24. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for severance for Edith Galloway under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at Part Lot 37, RP 16R4317, Part 2, Concession, Colpoys Range, Georgian Bluffs. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of the severance in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on March 19th, 2024 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application, and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and on the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of the decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed severance may submit an appeal.
Thank you, Madam Secretary Treasurer. I will now read the recommendation as presented and ask for a mover and a seconder. It has been demonstrated that application B-08-23 for Edith Galloway for the lands legally described as Part Lot 37, RP 16R4317, Parts 1 and 2, Concession, Colpoys Range, Georgian Bluffs, is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms to the County of Grey's official plan, and conforms to the Niagara Escarpment Plan. It is recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the Land Registry Office. 2, that pursuant to Section 53, Paragraph 42 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of the notice of decision. Note, Section 53, Paragraph 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. the stamping of the deed. 3, that the owner pays the applicable consent certification fee at the time of the certification of the deeds. And 4, that the payment of the balance of any outstanding taxes as of the date of the certification of the transfer and deed with respect to the property that is subject to the application shall be made to the treasurer of the township of Georgian Bluffs. Looking for a mover and seconder. Moved by Committee Member Moore Colburn, seconded by Committee Member Glenn. All those in favor? Oh, no, hold on. Could the planner please give us a summary of the planning report regarding this file?
This one's my report. So I'm Dave Wellwood. I'm a consultant planner with the township. And so the Galloway severance is a file that you've seen previously. So I try not to repeat myself too much. I'll just give you a little recap and let you know what's changed. So the committee has previously met to consider Ms. Galloway's application on March 19th. Members of the committee may recall that that application was deferred at the applicant's request to consider the removal of one of the proposed conditions. So to recap, this application is a lot addition. It's intended to facilitate the transfer of lands from one of the parcels that she owns to another one. These lands are located at 250784 Big Bay Road, just north of Cape Road. So this application would sever 1.36 hectares to be added to a 4.9 hectare parcel, resulting in a benefiting lot with approximately 6.3 hectares. The retained parcel would have an area of about 2 hectares. The intent is that the applicant wishes to construct a new home and garage on the newly enlarged benefiting parcel. The lands are within the jurisdiction of the Niagara Escarpment Plan. And a permit has been given for the construction of that dwelling and garage. The permit has conditions attached to it that are legally binding. One of those is the implementation of the recommended mitigation measures from an environmental impact study that was submitted to NEC as part of their approval of the development permit. So while not designated in the county OP, the natural heritage features of the county's official plan do apply. In their comments, they noted the presence of a significant wetland and a small stream. These are things that were already addressed through the NEC's approval of the development. Initially, the county had requested a condition requiring the applicants enter into an agreement to address those EIS requirements. That condition, as a result of that condition recommendation, the last meeting a decision was made to defer and allow staff to go back and talk to the county about whether that condition is really required and whether the NEC approval is sufficient enough. So we've had that discussion with the County of Grey. They are fine with the removal of that condition since the intent of their comments is already addressed through the NEC's approval. So staff therefore recommend that the application for the lot addition is consistent with PPS, conforms with the Niagara Escarpment Plan and the County of Grey official plan. And we recommend that the application be approved subject to the conditions that you read earlier. So you'll note that those no longer include the requirement to enter into any sort of agreement or the EIS. So that is it for me. I'll turn it over to you if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wellwood. I now call upon the applicant to provide comments. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Being nothing. No members of the public registered to provide comment. I now call upon any members of the public who may wish to make comment on this application. Please state your first and last name for the record prior to beginning. Seeing no one online and no one in the chambers, I'll turn to the committee. Are there any points raised by the planner, applicant, or public that the committee wishes to respond to? Seeing nothing. If there's no further discussion, I will now call the vote on the motion as presented. All those in favor? That motion is carried. If there's no further discussion, this public hearing is now adjourned. My apologies to those in chambers and on phone for my coughing. I'm trying my best. Item 6.1.7, DEV 2024-047. This is to for the committee to issue a certificate of cancellation for Galloway B0824. The recommendation is that it is the recommendation that the committee issue a certificate of cancellation as per application B08-24 submitted by Edith Galloway for the lands legally described as Part Lot 37, RP 16R 4317, Parts 1 and 2 concession, Culpoys Range, Georgian Bluffs, in accordance with the subsection 53, paragraph 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, C3, P13 as amended by the Act. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by committee member Moore Coburn and seconded by committee member Ladresse. Is there any discussion on that matter? I will call the vote. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Moving to item 6.2, staff reports. 6.2.1, COR 2024-032, the 2025 Committee of Adjustment Schedule. The recommendation is that the report COR 2024-032, 2025 Committee of Adjustment Schedule be approved as presented, and that the Secretary Treasurer be authorized to carry out all the administrative actions necessary to call the meetings contained herein. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Moore Colburn, seconded by Committee Member Glenn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried. Seeing no unfinished business, the date of our next regular meeting is September 17th, 2024 at 5 p.m. If there is no further business, I will now call for the adjournment. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Glenn, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. Any discussion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Enjoy the rest of your summer, folks.